Repel. Reject. Create.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to Rebel, Reject, Create podcast. And tonight I am talking to Cara Latta, who is the founder and chief fun officer of the Playful Warrior, and she's also a play and mindset coach. She helps adults reconnect with their playfulness and unlearn perfectionism. And it's that last bit that I'm really, really interested in here. Because I'm kind of curious. As a play person, obviously you're very into creativity. Where does perfectionism fit in to the whole play creativity matrix?
So for me, perfectionism is the opposite of play.
Ah,
And I was on a play journey as a very young kid and I was super playful, but then I started learning to adopt perfectionistic tendencies, right? We learn to achieve in school and we learn our worth is in how much we produce or how good we are at things. And that actually stopped me from embracing my playfulness because I started to learn to suppress that. I started to learn to only achieve a certain outcome. So I got into competitive play. I was a competitive dancer, but it wasn't like I was just going to dance for fun because I would worry how that would look and it would look silly and I would be worried about judgment. So I was really outsourcing my worth to other people. And then I kind of realized when I got into my 30s of just how much perfectionism had stopped me from playing. And it was something I really had to unlearn.
sorry, I got to ask you about this.
Yeah.
Perfectionism, you are outsourcing your worth to other people.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, you got to break that down for me. That's radical.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately, I think we all learn to do this, right? It's like codependency. We learn that love is conditional,
Mm,
and we learn that being approved or being lovable is dependent on who we were or who we are. So for me, it was outsourcing, like, am I worthy, was to my parents, to school, to partners, to all of these things, and trying to get their love and validation. But in that process, really suppressing who I was, suppressing my needs and my desires. And it was so, and I kind of went on that path for a while. I went in the corporate world. I really worked at a job I was really miserable at, very disconnected from play. So it was always for me just achieving and pleasing was the way I was outsourcing my worth. And so then for me, returning to play meant learning to just be myself without worrying so much what other people thought,
mm.
being really, really connected to my inner child and to my creativity, no matter how that was received. Because for me, turning to play made a lot of people really pissed off. Like a lot of people were not happy about this because my previous life was so different. I was working in PR in a very serious role, and telling people I was going to be a play coach definitely shook things up in my life, let's just say. So yeah, for me though, that was reclaiming my worth because that was the calling I had, was to do that, even though a lot of people disapproved of it.
Right. So PR and
Yeah.
perfectionism, not creative.
Somewhat. It is creative in the sense that we still do like some brainstorms and we had to think of campaigns for clients, but it's very much, you have guidelines and conditions and you can't think too much out of the box. So yeah, I would say there was like some creativity, but definitely not the way I'm creative now, for sure.
Right, right. So, I mean, I see this a lot because I do a lot of training workshops and one-on-one sessions where the way I describe it, people are essentially getting in their own way because before they've even tried to do something, they formed a judgment about their ability to do it.
100%.
How do you unlock that when you say you're trying to help people unlearn perfectionism?
Yeah. So I was just doing a session yesterday. I can use an example from, I was going into another group, and a lot of the people there were describing themselves as very rigid, very perfectionistic, very disconnected from play. So the first thing I had them do was we did some drawing with a blindfold because they were very resistant to art because we always judge what we do, right? As perfectionists, we're very hard on ourselves. We have a very very loud inner critic. So when we take the blindfold on, we're shushing that inner critic and we're allowing ourselves to express ourselves. But what's so interesting with an exercise like that, like I can have a ton of fun doing that now. But so many of the people that when they take the blindfold off and they see what they drew, they're just like, oh my God, this looks like shit. Or like, I'm a terrible artist. It's like, this is the point. We're just trying to have fun. But for them, that's great information though, that, okay, this is, this is something that's coming up for me and I can get curious about that and I can learn to be kinder to myself. Like, yes, I'm seeing I'm really rigid right now, but it is possible for me to start being like, okay, I see that thought, but I don't have to identify it with it anymore. I can choose a new thought. I can choose a new identity, because that's what I did. I was really resistant to play, and I used to judge myself a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty harsh to be hard on yourself for drawing something badly when you couldn't see what you were doing, right?
It happens all the time. Yeah.
Right, right. So, in your experience, practically speaking, what does perfectionism stop us from doing?
Hmm. Yeah, I think perfectionism stops us from being our true self. Honestly, from finding true joy, because we're always so worried about what other people think. We're always producing. When we go to rest or we go to play, there's this sense of guilt as well that we should be doing something more productive. So for me, it really stops us from enjoying life primarily.
Mm,
And what's wild is that it's so celebrated in society. Like I know when I used to do job interviews, I was like, oh, what's your best kind of trait? I'd be like, oh, I'm such a perfectionist, as if it was a really good thing. And I'm
yeah,
so detail oriented. And of course, like in some jobs, you do need to have some details. You can't just like not care at all. But for me, there's a difference between achieving and being a perfectionist. And perfectionists are really driven by fear, this like
yeah.
fear of failure and fear of judgment. Whereas you can achieve and you can have goals, but at the same time, you can have self-care and you can have boundaries and you can rest and you can play while you're achieving. So that's always the goal for my clients, is to get more to that healthy achievement instead of just being driven by fear and perfectionism.
When you first started that explanation, I was thinking, yeah, this has got to be connected to our kind of 24/7, always on, go, go, go culture that we live in at the moment, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's exhausting.
Okay, okay. So that's a whole bundle of habits that people have, because that's not just I'm holding myself to a high standard. That's also I can't leave my phone alone for longer than 30 seconds and what have you. Do you tackle that kind of thing as well?
Yeah, we do all of it. I mean, the
Right.
core work of mine, I would say, is like, for me, perfectionism is like this wound that we adopted as a kid, that we're not good enough. We're not good
Hmm.
enough, so we're always proving ourselves. So for me, my work with my clients is doing work every day to slightly build more self-worth, to believe that they are good enough regardless of what their relationship status is, what their career title is, anything outside of them.
Like I just mentioned earlier on, right? I do a fair amount of training and workshopping, and I would, I mean, I'm making up statistics here, but the majority of the people who I experience who are perfectionists are women.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I've been looking at statistics recently, and there's actually the latest ones I was looking at from Stanford were saying it was more men. But I
Oh,
was like you, I thought it was more women too.
yeah, because I mean, it kind of made sense to me because especially in the corporate world, women often are held to a completely unfair double standard. They have to be, 60% better than their male counterparts to be perceived of as equal, and therefore perfectionism is a tool to achieve that kind of thing. And they're putting themselves under enormous pressure to achieve things their male counterparts just don't really seem to feel any urge to prove at all. But maybe I've just got a very small sample.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. Like I will say, like most of the people I work with are women as well. So I was always under that impression. But based on the research I've seen is that like perfectionism is a really big problem right now with like students as well. And so the samples that they were looking at with students was actually mostly male.
Hmm.
And it's really linked to anxiety and depression and actually suicide as well. So it's actually like really, really serious. And I think more and more people are starting to understand it. It's just for so long, it's been thought of as this like badge of honor. And
Yeah.
so my work is to unlearn that idea. Like we can 100% achieve. Achieving is amazing thing. Striving for goals is amazing. But when you're doing it at the cost of yourself and your wellness and your well-being, that's not okay.
All right. Yeah, I mean, there's not much play when your sleeping bag is under your desk at work, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think too, as perfectionists, we learn to always put play last. It's like, okay, my obligations go first and my tasks. And then if I have time, then I'll play. But it's like, how can we start incorporating play in your everyday so that you're not getting to that point of burnout and you're actually just enjoying your day to day more? You're not just living for a vacation.
All right. I agree with you. But now you need to convince my audience here. What is play going to give you that you should put it first, that like being a perfectionist and being a high achiever isn't?
Totally. So for me, coming from this really perfectionistic lens that I was once in, what play gave me and gave my clients is this kindness to self, this compassion, this sense of grace, this sense that I can take things less seriously. I don't have to be so hard on myself. So when I am doing, for example, some kind of like weird art that's I'm not taking seriously, or I'm just dancing for fun, or I'm wearing two different socks, whatever it is that's playful for me, I get into this more lighthearted energy where I find I'm more in a flow state. I'm a lot kinder to myself, and I just find my inner critic shows up less. And if it does, I can be more detached from it because I know now this new way of life, this playful way of life that is so opposite, such a different energy than the perfectionistic way of life. So when I'm in this space, being kinder to myself, I'm enjoying my life more. I'm not as hard on myself for mistakes, and there's just less fear. So
Mm,
it's super liberating.
yeah. I mean, while you're talking, I'm thinking about that old Buddhist adage that it's the attachment to outcomes that is the source of all unhappiness.
Mm.
So, as a perfectionist, you are attached to a very specific outcome, the best outcome all the time, right?
Yes, but the problem is, so we're attached to an outcome, but then it's like as soon as we get the thing we want, we don't celebrate it, and we're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So we're like, it's just like there's always this moving target, and you're never satisfied ever. So it's also that's what play does. It helps you bring you in the present moment and actually learn to like celebrate, not just live in anxiety for this future thing that you're actually not even going to enjoy once you get there.
So, how does play give you that endorphin hit, that feeling of contentment that supposedly hitting your targets does?
Yeah, for me, like I just feel so connected to my playful inner child. And like as a kid, I was so playful and so in my self-expression and doing stuff that is playful for me. Yeah, like you said, it triggers release of endorphins and joy. And that's like the feeling I'm going for when I think about the goals and things I want. Like, what is it? It's I want to feel joy. And it's like, oh, I can get that in play. And there's just something like I love the name of this, rebel. It's like it feels like you're rebelling almost when you are playing, and rejecting like societal norms, which is so cool
Hmm.
that it's like I can get that feeling just in playing and slowing down and saying, no, you know what, I'm going to rest today or I'm going to play today, which is like so contrary to what we've learned to do. And I think in that sense of rebellion, like that also brings this sense of joy for me too.
Right. You've used the word joy a lot.
Mhm.
How does that fit into this particular equation? I mean, play, letting go of perfectionism, and this idea of joy, because I think, happiness is such a difficult thing to, first of all, achieve and also define. I mean, what does it even mean to be happy? So, how are you using the word joy?
Yeah. For me, joy means it's so funny. I don't know if I've ever defined joy, so this is kind of fun.
Sorry.
So this probably won't be I don't know, like I think joy for me is very tied to happiness, but I also think happiness is a choice, right? Like every day there are things I could choose to be happy about or things I could choose to complain about. So it's like, where am I putting my attention and what am I focusing on?
Mhm.
But like if I think about this week, when did I feel joy? Like yesterday I was on a call just like laughing with people and we were doing silly accents and just having the best time, and it's like so silly and so fun. And like I think in those moments of like silliness is when I really feel joy. Or even just yesterday putting up my Christmas tree and like playing Christmas music and dancing, like that was super joyful and fun. So often it's in really simple things like laughter with people or drinking hot chocolate and putting lots of marshmallows, more than maybe people say you should, things like that. But yeah, I don't know, places where I just feel really connected to my heart, my inner child.
Yeah. I'm also hearing a total absence of goals that have to be met.
Yeah.
It's not about that at all. It's just the thing in the moment, and that's it. Nothing else exists.
Yeah, that's totally spot on because I used to be so goal driven and I still do have goals, but I find when I am so driven by goals and my happiness depend on that, it doesn't work for me. Yeah,
Hmm.
I need time to detach from goals and just be in the present.
Well, that's a timely reminder for me. So, when we were chatting in the lead up to doing this recording, you mentioned that at some stage next year, probably somewhere in January, you're actually going to be hosting a masterclass about releasing perfectionism. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. So going into the next year, I want people to start to think about how can they achieve in a more playful way because I feel like so many people are setting goals for 2023, which is amazing. But so often the end of the year comes and then you're so disappointed if you haven't
Mm.
reached certain goals and you're not appreciating and valuing what you did for the year. So we are going to talk about ways to playfully achieve and set goals, and also we're going to play. So my whole work is actually about playing. It's very experiential. So I'll have people all over the world coming on live on Zoom and we will play together. We will connect with our inner child. And yeah, it's going to be so much fun.
All right, cool. And where can people find out more about that? On your
Yeah.
website or?
Yeah. I post a lot on Instagram at The Playful Warrior or my
Okay.
website as well, theplayfulwarrior.com.
All right, cool. We'll share both of those links in the show notes underneath the video here. All right, Cara, someone sees this video and they're like, oh my God, you're so inspirational and creative and playful. I could never be like that. Tell me what to do. And you're only allowed to tell them one thing. What do you say?
Hmm. Okay. I would say change your language to I could never be like that to just opening up to more possibility. Like I'm open to the idea I could be like that. I would say our words are very powerful,
Yeah, I would
and
agree.
I used to be like that as well. I thought play wasn't possible for me. But when I started just opening up the language I used, um, things started shifting in possibility. So yeah, I would take it as evidence. Sorry, this is more than one thing, but I would take it as evidence that see it is possible for you because I was someone who didn't think it was possible for me and I made that shift. So you can too.
All right, excellent. Cara, thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Thank you for
And
having.
it's a pleasure. And thank you to all of you for watching the video. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this show, hit the like button. And if you really loved it, hit the subscribe button. You'll find plenty more of these shows in the playlist, and there are plenty more to come. And if you've enjoyed what Cara has to say and you feel that maybe you're a perfectionist, check out her website and her Instagram channel from the links underneath the show and get in touch. Maybe Cara can help you loosen up a little bit. Cara, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much.